questions immediately. That's about a minute and a half for them to introduce themselves. And then we have Geoffrey Pamalungi, and then we have Emma Demtura. So we will start with Paravi for the introduction, and then we'll go to Pari, who we have interacted with before. Welcome, panelist.
Hey, well, hello, Jambo, bonsoir, and Ramadan Kareem for anyone who is here who is observing Ramadan. Thank you, as always, for inviting me to join this esteemed panel. It is an honor and privilege to share the education and information tonight. There is a lot of stuff going on. My name is Patavi Vinadalak. Many of you know that I am on the board of Vitendo for Africa, and I don't even remember how many years it's been that I've been on the board, but I love the organization and the energy that the V4A brings. Others of you know that I am an immigration attorney. I've been practicing law since 2001, immigration law specifically since 2005. My office is in the Cortex Innovation District, so right on the edge of the Central West End. So that's a little brief blurb about me. Thank you again for letting me join the panel.
Absolutely. And thank you for making time for this. Like we say, we know your time is your stock. So you making this time to be with us here today, it is awesome for us. Terry, shoot.
Yeah, good evening. My journey with Vitendo goes back maybe 20, 25 years. That's the amount of time I've known Jeffrey Soentet, a good friend, a good colleague. I've been practicing law for the last about 26 years. This is my 26th year in practice. I have an office in Clayton and an office in Chicago, a satellite office in Chicago. My focus is more general. I am a immigration attorney, but more importantly, I look upon myself as a attorney for immigrants. By that I mean 85 to 90% of my client base are immigrants, and they just don't come to me for immigration. They come to me for criminal work, for family law, we're doing half a dozen breach of contract cases right now in the Associate Circuit Court in St. Louis County. I believe in what I call the life cycle of a client. Most of my clients come to me initially for immigration work or for contract-related issues. We assist them with, in terms of immigration, we assist them with immigration filings with the immigration court and so on and so forth. Again, I'm glad to be here and, would attempt to answer as many of your questions as possible. But let it be known that, one of the things I mentioned earlier before we started this podcast or this conversation, it's pretty clear that many of the questions that have been posed are such that they can be answered fairly or by a knowledgeable attorney. So please do a favor to yourselves, contact an attorney for some of these questions, even if it's for 15, 20 minutes, half an hour. It's usually gratis. It's no cost to you, but a lot of these doubts will be clarified and cleared, and then you know where you stand and where you go from there. So, all right, take it away, Sebastian.
I appreciate it. I think if anybody is listening, there's a keyword there. I am an attorney for immigrants, meaning the resources, despite just the fact that there's immigration issues, as an immigrant, there are so many things that we go through. Some advice that might take you way far ahead in terms of making decisions. Thank you for clarifying that, because it opens door for people to be able to come to you and get the advice that we need. Geoffrey, welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. My name is Jeff, and I have been a defense attorney for the last 13 years. Right now, I am an immigration attorney based in Salt Lake City and Missouri, St. Louis. And I've been able to represent clients across the US. And just like Pativ mentioned, I am also a lawyer for immigrants. But beyond that, I am committed to community education, helping people understand immigration law and avoid common pitfalls. And today, I hope I'm going to share my practical experience that I believe families can rely on and provide clarity in often confusing system. Thank you.
Wonderfully put. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for that introduction, and also knowing that we have you in the community is a great addition in terms to us now coming to this point of saying that we have resources for the immigrants, not just from the immigration point of view, but also consultative point of view in terms of us understanding the directions that we should take. Our next, Emma, who is a community resource in almost all perspectives. It's a resource probably that we all would have. So Emma, take it up.
Hi, my name is Emma Ramtula. I thank you greatly and profoundly for allowing me this opportunity to provide information and misconceptions that are out there regarding orders of protection. I'm a paralegal by trade and law, legal advocate for victims of violence. But I am the Director of Client Services for St. Louis Survivors Legal Support, and it is a nonprofit organization that provides free legal representation to victims of intimate partner violence in St. Louis County. We also offer connections to other community resources for victims, and we offer education throughout the community about orders of protection.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that introduction. And we truly, truly appreciate that we have you in our community and as somebody we can come to. Just a small disclaimer as we go through this process. This forum is just to give you directions in terms of what you should do, but it's not something you cut and implement and said you took it from the forum. Like somebody said in this forum, we are trying to guide you into the right resource. So we advise you, we encourage you that whatever the situation is, please, please, please make sure you make your decision by seeing an attorney. And these are some of very, very high and expensive resources that you would find elsewhere. But we are happy that today we are getting this for free in terms of guiding us into the right place. So we'll take this up. And at this first question, I will ask that we will have start with Paravi, then we'll go to Pari, and then Geoffrey. And the question is, what recent changes in immigration law and processing timelines should families be aware of, and what can they expect when filing their applications?
Okay, well, immigration is changing constantly. So let me start with two short updates, and then we're going to talk about some updates that are a little bit more substantive and impacting a lot of African countries. One, the latest news today is Kristi Noem is apparently being asked to step down as Secretary of Homeland Security, and she will be replaced by Senator Markwayne Mullins at the end of the month on March 31st. That just came out today. For any employers and potentially students out there, the H-1B registration just opened up yesterday. So the H-1B registration period is open from March 4th until March 19th. So make note of that because we are in the middle of it right now. If that is something that you're thinking about, people who are on OPT are transitioning from an F1 and hoping to get an H-1B visa. You might be a little bit late unless you've already got an employer ready to sponsor you, but just as an announcement, that just opened up yesterday. As far as some of the more substantive changes, concerning changes to me, you've probably been hearing about all of these lists of countries, travel ban lists and visa pauses and lists of 39 countries and 75 countries, and they're all impacted differently. So let's break it down a little bit. So in June, the president implemented a travel ban on 19 countries. In December, he expanded that to 39 countries. In December, there were a number of changes that came along with those. So one, in December, all asylum applications are being paused. Two, the travel ban implements a full travel ban, so people from those countries cannot come here. But also in December, it was announced that there would be pauses or delays in the applications of people from those countries. And also in December, it was announced that they would reopen or revet many of the applications basically that were adjudicated during the Biden administration from January 20th, 2021 until January 2025. They're basically going to go reopen a bunch of those cases. Even though they had already been adjudicated, approved, everyone has moved on. Again, those are impacting people from some of these countries on the travel ban lists. And we have seen, and a number of African countries are on those lists. Jeffrey, I don't know if I'm able to do a screen share. I could at least show some of the lists. There's just too many countries to really talk about, but I could share the lists if I can. But what I'm seeing in my practice is some of the revetting is already happening. So for example, we did see in Minnesota, with everything that happened in January and February, Somalis in particular had been targeted in Minnesota for ICE enforcement actions, but also, you know, people being referred to deportation proceedings and, you know, their cases being reopened. In Minnesota, some people are already being re-interviewed, and those re-interviews are taking anywhere from 3 to 8 hours. And that I'm already starting to see expand here. So for example, in Kansas City, particularly Somalis, but not only Somalis. I think other people from other countries like DRC Congo, other places, if they had an immigration court proceeding and they had a hearing set, a lot of those got fast-tracked and were moved forward, giving people less time to prepare. I am seeing NTAs issued for people in various situations, which again, I think has to do with the revetting. So I am seeing certain people from African countries where they maybe came on a diversity visa, and maybe they were advised by a cyber cafe attendant to list or not list certain spouses or wives, and now they are either getting notices of intent to deny or notices to appear. They are being put into deportation proceedings because of how they did their diversity visa. I saw one the other day where she had gotten her green card through a spouse, and she got her green card, and now they are trying to put her into deportation proceedings because they think that she married a first cousin. So they are re-adjudicating things, like an officer already vetted them, approved their case, and now they're reopening and re-vetting. So if you or a relative is on one of these lists of countries, the full travel ban list or the visa pauses, it can vary from everything from, if you're going for your green card interview abroad at a consulate, you may still be getting your interview, but they will not issue that final visa to allow you to travel because of the visa pause. It could be you're being revetted. It could be that they are reopening your case and they may call you for a new interview. It could be you're being put into deportations proceedings. So these are pretty serious and risky, and I'm hoping we'll have some time, you know, a little bit later to maybe talk a little bit about know your rights and what to do if you do receive an NTA. But oh, and also EAD validity periods have gotten shortened. So that's another pretty big change that is happening and that I'm seeing right now. But I know we don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to pause there.
Thank you, Terry.
Adding to what Patavi just said, I think the most important thing that recent change as well. In a sentence, I'll summarize it to say a lot of delay and a lot of denial. Okay, you prepare for the worst and you hope for the best. I just had today, in fact, I had one of my associates. He's going to New York to fight an asylum case in New York. And we shall see how it goes. Processing timelines are greatly stretched. naturalization applications that would be approved in 3 to 4 months are taking much longer. I have an Iranian client where I'd filed citizenship for about 2 years ago, still waiting. And I think we'll be waiting much longer. A lot of agencies have talked about, there's a big old article about how ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement, went rogue. And I don't know if you've heard about it, but you've probably seen videos and all of that. You have to know your rights. You have to know what to do to protect yourself. Things like when can immigration agents legally enter someone's home? What is the administration claiming about these administrative warrants? All of those legal issues, contact a competent immigration attorney, sit down with them. Maybe it's half an hour, but there are lots of things that you want to know about yourself, about your situation. We can go on and on and on. What can they expect when filing applications? Well, so far in the St. Louis, Kansas City, and Chicago locations of USCIS for applications, I fortunately have not seen cases where if you make a mistake on an application, they're not going to tell you, hey, get out of here, and we're going to deny it. They're giving you an opportunity to correct those errors and mistakes, but it's up to you to essentially plead your case, okay? An example, again, is I was in the local office. There were lots of changes to a 485 that needed to be made because of the applicant's change in employment. They were gracious enough to allow us to make those changes. And what should have taken about 15 minutes took over an hour. So we are seeing a lot of that. It depends on which USCIS office handles these applications when filed, and whether these are family or business-based applications. At least for now, what I have seen is the St. Louis, Kansas City, and Chicago offices are very tolerant when filings are made pro se. Obviously, when filings are made with the attorneys, we always have an opportunity to request changes to be made, et cetera. I believe things are going to get much, much worse before they get any better as far as immigration is concerned. Paravi alluded to Kristi Noem being, given the boot in favor of the senator from Oklahoma. And it has all to do with the Democratic Party raising their voices and saying, hey, we are not going to pass DHS funding if the agents don't unmask themselves and then don't conduct themselves according to the law. Have there been instances where ICE agents have violated the law? Yes, ad nauseum. Many of them. We are actually looking at filing maybe 3 or 4 federal lawsuits against ICE for detaining U.S. citizens. So the fight continues, the struggle continues. It's going to get much worse before it gets any better. Expect that, and if you get a good outcome, you're only pleasantly surprised. So I don't mean to sound very negative, but that's just the way immigration is right now, in my opinion. And you got to be very careful what you file when you file it. Patty gave some examples of Somalis and so on. I had a Somali client. He's in court because, get this, he married a first cousin. The I-130, the 485, everything was approved. When the legal permanent resident, the green card holder, went to get citizenship, that's when they brought up the issue of marriage to a first cousin. So are they reopening prior adjudications? Very much so. And are they then putting them in immigration court? Absolutely. So the mantra for the day is be very careful what you file, when you file it. Get expert advice if you don't know what you're doing. And it's very much, as Jeffrey and I have talked about this, I'd be happy to field phone calls from any of the members of Whitendo if they want to talk to me for a few minutes. about that situation, and we'll be happy to provide. I'm at the stage of my life where, I'm almost 63 and due to retire in a few years. So my challenge these days is finding the time to help as many immigrant families as possible. But all of us are working hard, and we are there for you if you need support.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for that final part of it. The truth is the truth. I don't think there's any other way you can put it. But just the fact that we know you guys are there, we appreciate it. So, Geoffrey or Jeff, you're next.
Okay, thank you. I think based on the time that was given, it's about 1 hour, and that means we have about 10 to 12 minutes of active speaking. And so I'm going to be very brief, and I'm going to, again, to share my experience, just like Pativ and Perry. And the question here is, what should couples or families know before starting a family-based immigration case, including what documents help prove genuine marriage? Yeah, this is quite an enormous question. So I'm going to try to break it down into pieces. And I think would like to know what is family-based immigration. And again, from my experience, it is immigration based on spouses or unmarried children, where the folks or people obtain a green card, and it allows them to become lawful residents in the United States. Now, the purpose of a family-based immigration is to promote family unity, and that is the core principle of U.S. immigration policy. So, and again, from my experience, the common family relationships that can be sponsored are those that are immediate relatives to U.S. citizens, spouses, people who are married under 21 years of age, and parents of U.S. citizens. That is if they are citizens that are at least 21 years of age. Now, of course, there are other categories that fall under this type of immigration, which include unmarried adult children of U.S. citizens, married children of U.S. citizens, and other relatives, including brothers and sisters of U.S. citizens. Now, what should couples know before starting a family-based petition? And again, in my experience, this is typically about having a bona fide marriage. That is the basis. That is the benchmark. And so what is a bona fide marriage? In my understanding and from my experience, it is marriage based on genuine intent. In other words, it is entered into good faith with the intent of building a real life together. And this is very key because officers at that office scrutinize that intent. So was this family based on getting immigration benefit? And so that is the key. So in my experience, bona fide intent is very key. And that is what I want our listeners that have just joined us to understand and be concerned about. So the question is, did the couples enter or intend to establish legal marriage as opposed to the purpose of getting immigration benefits? And if the answer is yes, and the evidence supports it, the marriage is considered bona fide. So to me, that is very key. And from my experience, that's what I see USCIS offices scrutinize every other time. And of course, they look at different kind of evidence to determine bona fide intent. And there's so many issues that are going to be looked at here. But I think what I've seen being asked for in cases where they've issued RFEs is financial evidence. Do you guys have joint bank accounts, joint tax returns, insurance policies, listing each other's beneficiaries? So that is one of the evidence I've seen these guys looking for, but as well as shared residence. Do you have any lease agreements or mortgage documents, utility bills in both names? So driver license is showing the same address. So that's one other, that is one of the evidences these guys scrutinize or look for. And of course, relationship history. Here people look, here they look at photos over time. Has the couple lived together? Have they shared quality time or moments together? Travel records, text messages, communication records. So that is one of the evidence, or some of the evidence these guys look for, and that you should be able to gather together and be able to provide. I also seen evidence of third-party proof, whereby they ask for affidavits from friends or family who know the couple, wedding invitations or photos from events. So the list is complex. It is a long, long list, but that's one of them that I have seen officers ask for in almost every other RFEs in my experience. And then the other question was, what steps can families take if the sponsor loses their job or receive an RFE? And again, from my experience, if the sponsor loses their job, there are other kind of remedies that are available. And one of them, my experience, is that a joint sponsor can step in to meet income requirements. And I think they would like to file Form I-864, and household member income may qualify. If you have a member that...
Sorry about that. I think we've muted him.
Okay. Yes, I was talking about that there are different ways we can remedy and close that gap. And one of them is having a joint sponsor stepping in to meet the income requirements, and then household member income may qualify using different form. And I think that is from I-864A. And of course, assets, including savings, property, can supplement income if needed. Now, in my experience, almost what I've handled in immigration, I have seen officers issuing RFEs almost every other time. It is a common, it's not because your case has been denied, but they need further clarification or further evidence to support your case. And so if USIS issues an RFE, what do we do? What can you do? I advise my clients to read the RFE carefully and know the deadline. Provide thorough, organized documentation addressing every issue. And of course, if you're appearing pro se, as in you don't have an attorney or lawyer on your side, you may want to include a cover letter explaining how each document satisfies the request. And Perry talked about this some time back when we were trying to start this forum. Consulting an experienced immigration attorney is highly recommended. I think that's what I had as my questions.
Yeah, we'll come back to you as we continue. Thank you. We appreciate that. That's totally in depth. And we will now jump to Emma. Feel free to jump to those two questions. In the course of these questions, while we ask, if there's a question that has been posed to a different group and you have an input that is necessary, we are not constraining you to the questions. Just feel free to give that input based on if it's a question that have been posed before. So Emma, welcome.
Yes. Well, since my expertise are not in immigration law, like all of you have said, it is crucial to always get the advice of someone with those expertise. If someone that's coming to me with an order of protection and has immigration status issues, I always I connect them with an immigration lawyer. On our board, we have someone that does immigration law. So I will connect the victim with an immigration attorney. Like my boss always says, everyone has their strengths, everyone has their expertise, and it is really important to stay in your lane. If family law is not your expertise, don't try to guess. It's more harmful to the individual if we try to guess, or we think we know the information, or we know just a little bit. I may know a tad bit, but not enough to give any expert advice. So on immigration, if it has nothing to do with orders of protection, I always consult someone who is an expert. And I think that's very, very important.
Thank you. And right when you're right there, I think I want you to dive into telling people what are the first signs that someone should seek help in an abusive relationship, but also guided in the perspective of maybe they don't have the paperwork or they have the paperwork. If they sought help, do you think they'll be victimized, or the fear of not having paperwork is something they should hold back on? And if they do, who should they call, or what are some of the places that they should seek help to in terms of abusive relationship?
Sebastian, that was a very loaded question. But there's no way of determining when is the right time for a victim to seek help. But when they do have, a lot of times they don't seek help because they're scared of immigration and their status or their lack of status. I've had clients who their abusers took their immigration documents and threatened, to have them deported and things like that. They're quite shocked when I let them know that in this country, especially under the VAWA, Violence Against Women's Act.
Violence Against Women's Act, yeah.
Mm-hmm. They are protected. They have the right to protect themselves, protect their lives if they're a victim of violence, despite their immigration status. And I let them know that no one is coming to get you. You're not going to get deported just because, not for this, not for seeking protection from your abuser.
Let me add, Sebastian, the Violence Against Women's Act, it says Women's Act, but we have represented men who have also been persecuted. That's number one. Number two, the question here was, can they apply for immigration relief without the spouse knowing? Absolutely. It is incumbent upon the USCIS to keep that information confidential from the spouse, the abusive spouse, okay? And then if they're undocumented, can they seek custody or visitation of the children? Absolutely. We have plenty of cases where one or both parents are undocumented and we still have custody battles or visitation as part of the parenting plan, regardless of immigration status, okay? So let's be very clear. Immigration status is not as much of a consideration in family court, all right? Judges in the associate circuit in the county and in the city are cognizant of immigrants and immigrants' rights, in St. Louis anyway, and in KC and some parts of Chicago. So if somebody is being abused, they have rights. If somebody's being abused, they ought to seek the appropriate relief. Emma talked about TROs, temporary restraining orders, etc. But from an immigration perspective, they do need to seek assistance. They can ask for custody visitation. If the parent is deported, for instance, the question here was, that's a sort of an ancillary question, whether a parent's immigration status can affect the child custody visitation or the welfare. If the parent is detained, yes, it does happen that the child may not be detained because the child may be a USC child, a United States citizen child, but the parent is undocumented and hence detained, yes, it will. But there are other instruments such as springing powers of attorney, which can be instituted even while the individual is in custody. All right. So there are unique remedies available to parents who are in the process of deportation or are detained. You know, and I'm going backwards to that question. Can you resolve something peacefully? Absolutely. Mediation is a form that is also available to immigrants. You have a good mediator, you have a good outcome. You know, the if you look at all these questions, I think Emma rightly pointed out, Violence Against Women's Act is a great tool to be used by folks who believe that they are under some form of abuse. You don't have to worry about, you know, hey, what's my spouse going to know and going to do next? You don't have to worry about can I see my child? You don't have to worry about what happens if I get deported. Well, guess what? If you are an immigration court, I have a client right now from Portugal, right? She got married and she filed. I said, you know, immediately we have to file a VAWA case for you and your son. She's in immigration court. We have a prima facie determination of VAWA. The court has given me time for the completion of this VAWA case before the judge can actually rule or move forward on removal proceedings. All right. Anyway, back to you, Emma.
Honestly, Pari, I think you finished it up. I mean, I have limited information with immigration, but as far as orders of protection and domestic violence, that's basically you finished it up with the going into details about the VAWA Act. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you, Emma. That was in-depth and very, very important, especially when it comes to violence. And I'll come to you, Perry, with this question. With international workers, including teachers, nurses, and students, how do recent immigration changes affect them, and what steps can they take to protect themselves and remain compliant? It's for Perry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was that question for me or Patavi?
It's yours.
Okay, Patavi, you want to take a shot at it?
She'll come with the next one.
Okay. Well, what common mistakes do people make with immigration filings? Well, incorrect info. You know, I have a case right now. In fact, the gentleman brought his wife here on a K-1 visa, and then he got married. He filed his affidavit of support incorrectly. The whole thing was denied. Why? Because he had no clue what the affidavit of support should be, what it should look like. So I see those mistakes all day long. And you know, the status question is an independent question of the immigration filing question. But in terms of immigration filing, if you don't do anything else, before you file your forms, whatever forms they are, family-based forms, you know, self-petitioning, business-based forms, whatever it is, I would recommend that, you know, your audience at least get these forms checked for correctness and for appropriateness before you file. The second part of the question is, what is the first step someone should take if they're unsure about that status? Well, you know, the first thing is, you know, contact an immigration lawyer. I mean, that's the best way I can describe this. If you're unsure about your status, it tells me that you've filed something and you're waiting on it, or you've been served with a notice to appear in front of a judge and you have no clue why. So those are the things that are very specific to every case, every situation, and you know, you got to unravel that. I mean, a bigger question ought to be, what are my options given the situation I'm in? Should I be filing for a benefit that I have not even thought of? Once filed for a benefit, how should I follow up? Where should I look for more information? I think those are the corollaries, the ancillary questions that arise in my mind anyway when I read that question.
Thank you. And I would invite Taravi to take a shot of it and also address the common mistakes that people do make with immigration filings.
Okay. Yes, I would agree with everything Perry said. And some of the other things that both Jeff and Perry said earlier, I mean, I would plan very early. Processing times, to me, honestly, are all over the board. I do think that there are delays. I do think that things are taking longer. But like we said, some cases are getting fast-tracked. And I think this is part of trying to just speed up this rate of deportation and putting people into proceedings. But I myself have had things all across the board. So next week, I've got a spouse green card case that is going to interview, but we just filed like last month. No, sorry, we're in March. We filed it in January, but that's very, very fast to me. And that's an immediate relative, spouse green card case, the exact kind that Jeff was talking about. On the other hand, I have immediate relative cases that we had filed back in like late 2024 that still haven't gone to their interview. And I don't know why. I have cases that I filed 3 of the exact same type on the same day, and some they already got their oath ceremony, some did their interview, some haven't. We haven't heard anything at all. So I think one piece of advice would be just plan early, and anticipate. Like Perry was saying, hope for the best, but plan for the worst. Like anticipate a long processing time. I would talk to a really good strategist. Again, what Perry was saying, like somebody who can talk to you about all the different possible options that you may have, you know, and then kind of narrow down like which ones make the most sense for you and your family. But again, in that sort of like J1, H1B situation, people who are nurses, who are teachers. I know that a lot of you are, saying, hey, it took me a long time just to even get to this part, just to get my H1B, just to get my J1. But now I want to look at the next steps for green card. So again, talk to a good immigration strategist who can really explore all the different opportunities open to you and, start early, plan early. I tell this to students too, like, it is never too early to start thinking about H1B because especially for people who are here on like a 1-year master's degree, you barely get here in like September, October, and then H1B, registration comes around in March and you need to like be looking for an employer to sponsor you and all those things. So if you're thinking about H1B now, but you don't have an employer lined up, it may be late. And again, this is more for people who are here on a 1-year master's degree. If you are here on a bachelor's degree, or, you have a 3-year STEM OPT, you have more chances, you have a little bit longer to consider options. But those are some of the things I would look at. Sebastian, what was your other question?
It was the first question I think you alluded to. I think I'll bring you on the very final one. I want to give
Okay.
Geoffrey an opportunity if you have anything you want to add on those questions.
I do not have any. I think Pativ and Perry gave it the best shot.
All right. We'll come to the main questions now here that I feel free to restructure these questions where they probably would fit most of the questions that they are being asked. So to you, Geoffrey, how can families protect themselves from immigration scams? And what are some of, right now, everybody has become a lawyer through ChatGPT, going online and completing their paperwork. And people are reacting more on fear than reality of what's going on. What are some of the things that that would help them to protect themselves from scams?
Oh, wow. I think we are living in a crazy world right now. And once you are in such kind of situation experience, you are desperate. And once you're desperate, we tend to make mistakes or seek counsel from people that do not have the expertise. and the experience to guide us through. And again, from my experience, what I've seen are applicable is that please only seek guidance from licensed attorneys. Okay. All DOJ accredited representatives who can legally provide immigration advice. There are so many folks outside there who claim to be licensed lawyers or attorneys or reps who can provide competent representation, but that is just a scam. And so always only seek guidance from only licensed attorneys or DOJ accredited reps who can legally provide immigration advice. So be cautious of guarantee of approval. Okay. Someone tells you, oh, this is 100% gonna let the approval. So be cautious about it. So large cash payments without receipts. So it is a red flag in my experience. And individuals claiming special connections with USSIs or immigration judges. So verify attorneys through state bar associations and AILA directories. So that way you will be able to avoid getting into scams, because at this moment people are so desperate, they need competent representation, and unfortunately they've been able to be scammed. So I think Perry and Pativ can add on that.
And as you add to that, Perry, I think there's a question here that followed. What follows after receiving a VAWA reception notice, I-485, and I-765 receipt notice? And they're asking about the processing time when you add on what Geoffrey spoke about. And then I'll invite Paravi to this.
I'm sorry, you'll have to repeat that. This was something about VAWA and the filing of the 485 and 765. What was that again?
Yes. What follows after receiving a VAWA reception notice?
Okay. Yes. What follows after receiving a prima facie determination and an approval of the VAWA of that's of the I-360? You file the 485. You typically can concurrently file the 485 with the I-360, but most people don't want to spend the money because they don't know whether the VAWA, the I-360 is going to get approved or not. So they wait. And while the prima facie determination is made, they are eligible at that time for the I-765. They don't have to wait until they get approved. So technically what we do is we file the I-360, wait for a prima facie determination, file the I-765 so they can start, they can get benefits, start working, etc. Once the I-360 is approved, that's when we file the 485.
Thank you.
And the 485 is the adjustment of status from that of the 360, whatever visa status that they had before, to that of a green card holder. Now, assuming that the I-360 is not approved, right? What's going to happen? Well, they're going to be out of status. So they're going to be referred to the immigration court. Now, what happens in the immigration court? Well, they get a second bite at the apple. They try to convince the judge that, hey, look, I am an abused spouse. I am eligible for a VAWA. I should get VAWA. Judge, we've had some spectacular successes with the judges in Kansas City, with two of them anyway, and with judges in Chicago. It's my belief, having done this a long time, that judges in general are very sympathetic to abuse cases. Okay, and you said about we talked about the Emma, when Emma was talking, we talked a little bit about who control and what protections. You file the VAWA, even if you think that your case does not have enough merit, you don't have enough evidence. That's the biggest thing I see. I don't have any evidence that my spouse abused me. Well, what happened? He did this or she did this. I called the police, but I didn't want to call the police, and I withdrew my complaint from against him or her, and so I don't have any evidence. Well, guess what? You should file a VAWA case with even the scantiest evidence, because it's incumbent upon the adjudicator to prove that you don't have a VAWA case, as opposed to you proving that you do have a VAWA case. That's one of the, shall we say, the vagaries of immigration law, which I love. I started my career 26 years ago as an advocate for women with the Legal Service of Eastern Missouri, and I have seen just about any kind of VAWA that you can probably think of. That's when the VTVPA was just being enacted with the U visas, the snitch visas, the T visas, and of course the VAWAs. Short answer to your to your question. What happens? A, you file it. B, get the prima facie, file the 765. C, once approval, get your 485. If not approved in front of a judge, you will get a second shot at it.
Thank you. Paravi, I think I will invite you. We have seen in recent cases where rights, or what we thought were right, we have been told before this is what you should do, have been overstepped, or where ICE have not actually observed the rights that we have always thought that are there for us. With that in mind, what are some of the things that we should know if ICE comes to you, or you get a notice to appear to court with the back of a mind, or what emergency documents should I keep handy every time this is happening, or what documents should I carry with me given the situation that is going on right now? And I'll invite.
I can answer that question, but if you have about 45 minutes, I can go through a complete treatise of what's going on right now. But Paravi, I'd let you do that. I'll add to whatever you have to say. I mean, everything from traffic stops to illegal racial profiling to harassment to the redefining likely to escape, redefining catch-22, redefining warrants. Oh, the list goes on and on and on. So, Paravi, if you want to take a stab at it.
I totally agree. I mean, immigration just changes drastically all the time, and there's so much going on. So I will try to quickly address kind of know your rights. There's a lot out there, and we in our office have a lot of know your rights resources. So I would invite people to reach out to us, and we'll send them to you. And also, I was looking at the chat. I know that there are some questions relating to, the Muslim community being very afraid, fear of travel, some H-1B questions. So I'll try to quickly address those as well. In terms of know your rights, there are lots and lots of resources out there. You have probably seen things in social media. Three of the main things, just to be as brief as I possibly can, because I agree, Perry, we could do a whole 2-hour on this. One, I always say, I am exercising my constitutional right to remain silent. So everyone in the United States, it doesn't matter if you're a US citizen, whether you are undocumented, whether you are a refugee, whether you're here as a student on a business, on a visitor visa, any immigrant, whether documented or not, has constitutional rights to unreasonable search and seizure. So the first thing I would memorize and say if you are encountered by ICE or law enforcement is, I am exercising my constitutional right to remain silent. Because if they ask you, what is your name and what country are you from, that is the fastest way for them to start instituting either expedited or even just regular deportation proceedings against you. So to the extent that you are able to just say, I am exercising my constitutional right to remain silent, keep repeating that over and over again. There are red cards that look like this. We have a lot of them in my office in almost 20 different languages. They are bilingual. They are English on one side, and they are Arabic, Farsi, Somali, all sorts of other languages on the other side. These tell you your constitutional rights and what to do in the event of an ICE or law enforcement encounter. But the beauty of the red cards is, if your English is not very good, you can read the one in your language to help you remember what to say. But even if you get very nervous and you don't feel like your English is strong enough to assert yourself, you can give the English side of the red card. You can slip it through the window, whether you're at home or through your car window, and showing an officer the English side of the red card is the equivalent of exercising your constitutional right. So number one, I am exercising my constitutional right to remain silent. I do not give you permission to search my house, my car, my purse, my whatever. And then number three, if they, you know, at the end, I always tell people to repeat, am I free to go? Am I free to go? Because they have to have a reason to detain you or keep you. And if they have no reason and they can't articulate any reason, they are supposed to let you go. Now, I say this all with a caveat because we all know that it can get very out of hand very quickly. So read the situation. If you can assert your constitutional right and give as little information about yourself as possible in terms of your name, in terms of your country of national origin, in terms of where you work or what you do or where you live, that is great. If the officer starts to escalate and starts to think that you're not complying and it starts to feel unsafe, then by all means, comply and do what you need to do to keep yourself safe. That is just the most important. And like I said, it just takes one rogue officer. It just takes 2 seconds for things to turn very quickly. So, you know, just you can read the environment and you can read the conditions. And if it feels unsafe, then trust your intuition and do what you need to do to keep yourself and your family safe. In terms of the Muslim community feeling afraid, it is valid. We have a legal assistant in our office. She speaks Dari and Farsi. She's from Afghanistan. And so we do get a lot of calls from, you know, people from Iraq, Syria, Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, you know, many countries. And so the fear is real. And I would get advice early, and I'm going to go back to some of the revetting that we're seeing in the Somali community, but also many other African communities. You know, they just started doing the really heavy revetting in Minnesota just in the past couple of months. And like I said, we're already starting to see that some of these interviews are taking 3 hours, 8 hours, which, you know, Perry, you were saying like a 15-minute interview ended up taking an hour. I mean, that is normally on the long end, but if they are doing 3 to 8 hour interviews, they are really, really asking a lot of questions. And if those interviews come very fast, we don't have a lot of time to prepare. So I'm advising at least our clients that I think are in this vulnerable bucket to start thinking early about preparing, because if you get that interview, we may not have a lot of time to prepare. So I would rather start preparing early, at least thinking through interviews, gathering documents. So that is one thing I would say. On the travel issue, I have had lots of clients travel and it's been totally fine, but I have been, you know, I'm kind of the mother hen. I feel like if you don't have to travel, it would just be safer. But then again, I don't like to act from a space of fear. You know, I don't, and if we come from a place of fear, I think that they win. And I don't think it's fair. I mean, to be honest, I think we should all be able to travel, you know, and do whatever we want and go to weddings and go to graduation and go visit mom in the home country and go visit our brothers and sisters and travel and vacation and do whatever we want. The other side of me is just so terrified that, you know, but the risks are real. You could get pulled into secondary inspection. You could get detained. You may not be allowed back. You know, in December, many people from India, you know, had traveled to go get married, you know, go for vacation, visit family. They were going to interview on an H-1B, you know, interview and come back. And all those interviews suddenly got canceled. So they had to make, you know, alternate plans. And then just to address one question or a couple of questions I saw in the chat about H-1B. So you guys probably know in general, if you're approved for an H-1B, you get approved for an initial 3 years. You can renew only one time for an additional 3 years for 6 years total. If you're thinking about green card in that time, as long as you have filed to a certain point in your green card early enough that it has been pending for more than a year by the time you reach the end of year 6, you can continue to renew your H-1B indefinitely while your green card is pending. And only at that point, at year 6, can your spouse on an H-4 have employment authorization. But again, plan early, because I have a client who was approved for her H-1B in last year's CAP season, and we're probably going to start filing, like start the very beginning of her, EB2 green card, the prevailing wage determination, like this summer. She's barely a year into her first initial 3 years of H-1B. And so again, these things just all take time. So plan early is my advice.
Let me know the original question talked about when, and Patty, we talked about know your rights and so on. The reality, however, on the ground is a little different in that all of you know that the Supreme Court permitted the Trump administration to use race and ethnicity as one of the factors, along with speaking English or working in immigrant heavy professions such as landscaping, etc., to establish reasonable suspicion to conduct immigration enforcement, right? You saw the roving patrol in LA. You saw all what's going on in Minnesota, in Minneapolis. Federal agents are often armed. They're masked. They are in military gear. They do and will act aggressively towards the people they're questioning.
Which
you can give
includes
them the
US
impression that
citizens.
I'm not required to answer your question. Even, the law says you don't have to. But they make it hard for people being questioned to assert their legal right to walk away. That's the reality on the ground. We as attorneys, we say, you have the legal right to walk away. But what happens when you are surrounded by 3 armed agents and you try to walk away? Well, guess what? They're not going to let you walk away. So your best bet in these situations is to just say, hey, look, I'm here. English is not my first language. I would like an attorney to be present if you want to question me. Something to that effect that can de-escalate the rhetoric, okay, on the ground. And, carrying your whatever documents you have to prove that you're here. There are, as of January, the statistics say that there are 250 US citizens that have been apprehended, okay? And what do when they apprehend these US citizens? They call them obstruction.
Mhm.
So journalists and so on who go to record ICE heavy-handed behavior are taken into custody because they're obstructing the work of ICE, all right? So, we hope that none of you encounter ICE in Missouri or Illinois. But that, I'll give you an example. I was in Chicago. This happened before me. I was in Chicago because my wife was going overseas. I'm originally from India. She was going to India, so I was going to drop her. I sat. After I dropped her off, I went to a pizza place in Chicago, in one of the suburban Chicago. And I was talking to the waiters and one of the managers saying, hey, what's going on? They said, yes, we just had a raid at a shop, half a block down. And they took everybody who was working there. And so, I talk about escalation of enforcement. It is not just escalation; it is a super escalation.
Mhm.
Is it going to go down, go away anytime soon? I personally don't think so. So it's in your best interest to maybe you go buy groceries. This is what I do. I come to the office. I go out to buy groceries. I don't go out late in the night. Whatever. Even though I'm an attorney, I'm a person of color, and my colleagues and we have talked ad nauseum about all this, and so it's up to you to protect yourself when the law won't. Okay, and that's the only maxim I'd leave with everybody who's on this call, saying this current situation is, we are fortunate we don't have as much enforcement in St. Louis, but the current enforcement tactics of ICE have gone. It's absurd at this point.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. I mean,
so
they are trained to ignore the Constitution, and that's one of the things that Jeff and I were talking about before we started this panel. Is they're not following the law. They're not following the Constitution, and so it makes our job as attorneys infinitely more difficult to advise, because we can advise on the law. We know the law, but they are not following the law, and that's where things get very, very difficult.
I mean, have you heard, and I'll throw this out to anybody who's been in the United States for more than, say, 15 years, 20 years. Have you ever heard that ICE broke down the window in a passenger car because the person they were questioning did not want to talk to them? It is unheard of, okay, in this country. I've been in the United States as an immigrant and now as a US citizen for 39 years. I have never seen that in my life, in my time in the US, all right? So, it's a catch-22. Non-citizens have the legal right to leave rather than continuing to be questioned and asserting that right. But they would then be apprehended and say, you're likely to escape, so you cannot walk away. Okay, this is a redefinition and the administration's efforts to rearrest and detain people. All right. So, most of my clients who come to my office and say, hey, should I travel? Paravi, you alluded to that. I said, you have a green card? I have a green card. Can I travel? I said, absolutely not. Unless it's a life-threatening emergency and you have to go, do it. We used to be on great terms with the local Customs and Border Protection. I heard through the grapevine and through his supervisor that now he's not allowed to talk to any attorneys. I have never seen this in 25 years, all right? 26 years. So, use of warrants. ICE supervisors use administrative warrants for removal orders. That's unheard of. No, that is totally against the law. A warrant has to be signed by an independent judge, not by an employee of the Department of Justice. All right. So, in any event, I mean, I feel, as you can tell, I feel very strongly about this. So it's up to you. You talk to an attorney, we give you advice, but you are the one on the road facing ICE. Can you imagine a guy with a semi-automatic, masked, sunglasses, a cap, a bulletproof vest, accost you in the street? What are you going to do? Assert your rights? I mean, let's talk about reality, okay? Sure. Are you going to try to say, hey, am I going to walk away? Well, the idea here is don't put yourself in that situation. And if you are in that situation, be cooperative. That's all. That's all I would say.
Thank you. I think that's the purpose of this forum, is to try and just make sure that we get good information that coincide with the reality on the ground right now, and we appreciate that. We are coming to the very end, and these very final questions will coincide with what we're about to do. I'll invite Emma. Emma, I want you to give us a little bit of information or access to information that we need. In St. Louis, we are limited in terms of places that we can go when it comes to violence, the resources and what you do and where people would come for such resources.
Okay, so there are very limited legal resources for people who can't afford an attorney. For the marginalized communities, there's not a lot out there, mostly in North County. We see a lot of abuse cases coming from North County. The first thing is we're trying to work with the police departments and maybe educating them, informing them of the factors of domestic violence and how to approach a domestic violence situation. So we're working on that. Not all police departments are on board, but we're getting there. Also, we work with shelters. There's Alive. Of course, of all places, there's the domestic violence hotline. There's Alive, there's Safe Connections, YWCA. I feel like a lot of people don't even realize that YWCA does so much in the community, especially with victims of violence, despite the gender. There's, as far as, excuse me, as far as free or low-cost resources available to immigrants, victims, and survivors, there's Monarch Immigrant Services. They offer social services, interpretation, translation, mental health services, legal services, and they also assist senior citizens. There's the MICA Project. They do a variety of immigration legal services. Like Pari mentioned earlier, there is the USCIS, and they are wonderful with immigration legal services, adoption, US employment. They cover all of those immigrant legal services. Also, there's Legal Services of Eastern Missouri. They have an immigration project, and they assist with all the filings with immigration needs.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. But like I said, if someone is being abused, if you're not ready to take on, to get an order of protection, call the domestic violence hotline, call any of these domestic violence crisis centers. They will provide a safety plan. St. Louis Survivors Legal Support, we operate as a law firm, as a legal services. That's what we offer mainly. We're not equipped for safety plans, but we can definitely connect any survivor or any victim to any of those places, as we are partners with them, so that you can get a safety plan. And we explain, there's so many misconceptions on orders of protection. People, I think one of the biggest myths is that you have to have physical injuries for it to be domestic violence. And that is not true. Absolutely not. Abuse can be emotional, psychological, verbal, financial, and sexual, which then escalates to physical. One of our lethality questions is, has your partner ever forced you to have sex when you didn't want to? A lot of them say no. So I have to break it down. Sexual assault does not mean it is not it doesn't have to be a violent rape. It can be sexual abuse can be the partner wants to have sex. The victim says, no, I don't want to. The partner knows she doesn't want to, but he intimidates her, or he threatens to get angry, or he starts getting angry. And because she knows that he's an abuse, or that he will escalate that abuse, then she gives in and she says, okay, that's still sexual abuse, because he's using coercion and intimidation and threats to get that. So even if a lot of victims think that because, well, I said, I agreed to it. I said, okay, I went along with it. It's still sexual violence. Usually the abuser starts off very charismatic. I think we all on this panel know this. And then once they have that person, they have that love, then they start chipping away at the victim's self-esteem, criticizing all the time, isolating from friends and family. And then before you know it, it gets even harder for the victim to leave. So we explain these things. We let them know that it is not their fault. We don't judge. One major thing with friends and family supporting the abuse or the victim, you cannot force help. You've got to be able to give out all the resources, all the information. And support means even if that victim decides this is not the right time, only that victim knows exactly when is the right time. That victim has to live that life. I don't live her life. None of us live that person's life. Sometimes going forward with an order of protection may escalate things. Sometimes calling the police may escalate things. She will know when is the right time, and we have to give her that power back to make that decision. I hope I answered it.
You answered it way better than I've ever had. That was beautiful, wonderful information that we gained from you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Appreciate that wealth of knowledge and resource. Now we are coming to this final part where I'll probably give each one of you an opportunity as our parting shot. But also while you're doing that, try and see if you have a place where you can, where people can verify trustworthy information. And if there's one information that you'd give us today, what would that information be? And if you feel there's something you left out there, this is the opportunity to throw it out there as we come to the conclusion. And I'll start this with Geoffrey. Jeff, sorry.
Thank you. I think as I conclude, I just want to leave one word. Immigration cases are won or lost on documentation, evidence. And so regardless which kind of petition folks are making, families should think of their cases as telling a story through records, identity documents, immigration notices from USIS office, financial records, and proof of family relationships. So the more organized that documentation is, the stronger the case will be. And please seek guidance from competent, licensed lawyers. We have Perry here, we've got Patev here. If you want to have a well-organized petition, or if you're seeking to have your case successful, and that's what I can say as closing.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I also want to thank you for your time. And I will now invite Patavi.
I guess I would say, you know, both Jeff and Perry have talked about this. Immigration is changing drastically and substantially every day sometimes, in very substantive ways. It's hard to keep up. So if you have questions, you really should reach out to an attorney and ask about your specific case, because we've barely touched the tip of the iceberg tonight, because there is so much going on, and everything impacts every person's case very specifically, individually. It's hard to generalize because there is just so much going on. So you know, stay on top of what's going on, but seek advice from an immigration attorney on how all these changes apply to your specific situation. Plan early, get a good strategist, and you know, reflecting on what Jeff just said too, everything really, you need to document your case even better than before. So you probably really, I know I have a lot of clients come to me and they say, I want to file it really quickly. I want to file it right away. And I always advise, you are much better off spending the time to document and prepare your case well and very carefully, rather than just trying to rush through it and submit something that is sloppy. Because right now, I think DHS is using AI. And so with some of this revetting, I think that's how they're just kind of quickly trying to find like inconsistencies. Like if you came on a refugee and you said this, and then on your citizenship, you're saying this. And I think these are some of the places where they're trying to ding people and just say, gotcha. You know, we're going to put you into deportation proceedings because we found this little inconsistency. And it's a bot that's just looking for any little thing. And so if you had, you know, you may not be able to fix the cases that you had filed in the past 5 to 10 years, but, you know, if you had prepared your cases well and comprehensively and completely and truthfully, and they're consistent with all of your filings, you know, from the beginning, that puts you in a stronger position. But to the extent that you now have you know, oh, I was sloppy and I checked the wrong box here, I put the wrong answer here, and my answers are a little bit inconsistent, that's where they're going to try to get you. So yes, spend the time to document your case well and properly and comprehensively, and that will help protect you.
Thank you. And I'll invite, and as I invite you, I also, and you know, if you want to take a second shot of it, this is my question. We hear about a detention being built in St. Louis now. Does that make St. Louis a safer place, or does it make it, is it more now highlighted that people are able to have more immigration or ICE on the floor, or is it even better for us that we can now just see people from across a detention center?
Private immigrant or private detention, you know, private prison complex is terrible for everybody because they are just getting paid to put people in beds. It's a terrible idea. It does not make us safer, and it gives them incentive to just pick up people for any reason and no reason at all so that they can have their numbers and make their profit. I don't know why enforcement should be a profit-driven enterprise. I mean, it's wrong on every level. No, it does not make St. Louis safer.
Thank you.
My 2 cents.
Perry, we got you.
All right. Well, again, thank you guys for this wonderful forum. Jeffrey, you've taken an idea and run with it. And I commend you for all the work that you and your team have been doing. You've done an excellent job for the community. And I'm glad to be a part of it. You know, we have talked about documentation, we've talked about boots on the ground, et cetera. You know, talk to an immigration attorney, talk to an attorney, period. But most importantly, and this is what I said in a presentation that I made about a month or two ago to a group of young professionals, some immigrants, some not, and that point was, yes, you have immigration problems. Yes, you have immigration issues. Yes, you have legal problems. Yes, you have legal issues. Do not stop living your life because of that. You know, believe that there is a power greater than yours and seek assistance. Ask for help, it will be given. That's the only few last words I'd like to leave the folks with. Sebastian.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Emma, if you have anything, I know you had come last, but I invite you.
I agree with everyone. At the end of the day, any legal matter you have, please consult an attorney, consult an expert. If it's an immigration issue, don't go to a personal injury attorney because it's cheaper. Do the research, and there's plenty of resources out there. We are a forum filled with resources. Every single one of us have resources. Reach out to any one of us. We will provide you with resources for whether it's immigration, domestic violence, intimate partner violence, family law, custody. We're a wealth of information and resources. People tend to spend more time picking out their socks than picking out an attorney. This is so much more important. Your lives depend on it. I mean, your livelihood. It is important to find an expert, find an attorney for that. If it's immigration, get an immigration attorney, get an expert. Don't go to a personal injury attorney.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Paravi, Perry, Geoffrey, Emma. I think if there's one thing that I'm proud about, is just the ability and the knowledge our people have in terms of advising our people. So if this is never mentioned to you as you go through your daily routes and advising other people, I think we highly appreciate the information that you give to us, sometimes freely, and most of the time freely, which would have ended up probably costing us a whole lot. And in that process, blocking a lot of people from just getting such information. You might not understand that such forums is a breakthrough to a lot of people in terms of just understanding what is the next step they need to take. This feedback probably never gets to you, and I'm talking to our panelists tonight. You might never get these feedbacks, but these feedbacks come to us that through the forums that you held on this day, I was able to find my breakthrough in certain perspectives. And especially in these times when people are living in fear, just the ability for you to take the fear away is enough by itself. That when they hear from you with the interactions that you had, they're now able to pursue the routes that they needed to, especially even when it comes to abuse or immigration. So I want to thank you so much, but also commend you for your knowledge and depth research, knowing your product, knowing what you do. You are as good as anything else or anybody else that we can go out there and seek. So thank you for your guidance, thank you for your wisdom, and for our attendees, thank you for making time and even for posing your questions. There's sometimes with all this knowledge, if they didn't have anywhere to pour it, they don't need it. I mean, they don't need all this because they have gone through it. It only becomes useful when it's poured to people who can consume it. And we are the consumers of this information. So for those of us who are able to attend this forum, thank you, and continue consuming this information as it's given to you, because information and knowledge is power. And using that knowledge, you can actually foster your way. Now, I want to invite Geoffrey, as I thank everybody else, so that he can also give us a closing remarks and also tell you the next things that is happening. But thank you, everybody. Again, my name is Sebastian, and thank you for staying with me. And I apologize that I went for an hour and a half. I was planning on an hour and 15 minutes, but I think the 15 minutes is priceless. So thank you, everybody. Have a good night. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wow, thank you so much. I appreciate. I think Elizabeth, if you don't mind, please share about we have an event coming up on Monday, and we really want everyone to be on board. Are you there, Elizabeth?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, you can go ahead and share about the upcoming events.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for attending today's session. We really appreciate it, and I hope everyone has been able to get the resources. And if you want, you can always reach out to us. We'll always be willing to provide everything. Then, so for next week, we have a few upcoming events, and we'll be sharing the link too. So next week, we have the multi-cancer detection essays, which will be led by Dr. Adetuji Teriola. He'll be discussing multiple cancer detection tests and upcoming cancer trials. So please, if you're available, please join that meeting. It will be virtual. Then we'll also be having our mentors and mentees meeting on Saturday, March 21st. And there we have a keynote speaker known as Dr. Kendra from Affinia Healthcare. So please avail yourself, mentors and mentees, so that you can be able to get the available knowledge, and we'll be leading our mentees and matching them together with the new mentors. We'll also be having the Youth Mental Health First Aid training on Wednesday, March 25th. So that one is mainly for the parents and all adults who are training with young children, or if they have high school students at home. So please, if you're able to sign up, we'll be sending the link out. We'll also be having teen mental health first aid for the high schoolers, age 14 to 18. And it will be March 26, 27, and 28 at Vitendo for Africa from 11. So please, high school students, if you're able to sign up, or even parents, if you have kids who can sign up, please have them sign up. We'll also be having the couples dinner on March 27th from 6 to 10 at Holiday Inn. So this one is for the couples, and if you know people who are able to join it, please sign up, and we'll be sending out the links and everything. We'll also be having adult mental health first aid at Thomas Dunn Learning Center in South City on Saturday, April 4th. So please, adults, if you're able to sign up, we'll be sending out the link too. And also, for future events, we'll be having the graduation party for class of 2026 on June 19th. And we'll also be having the Women Empowerment Dinner on August 7th at Holiday Inn too. So thank you so much, everyone, and I'll hand it back to you, Geoffrey.
Thank you so much. I appreciate everyone. We just shared the link. Click that and you can share it on your calendar. We wish you all the best, and also the recording will be shared to you maybe by next week. Thank you so much, and thank you to our panelists. Let's keep ourselves safe, and let's keep on checking on each other. Thank you. All right, thank you, everyone. Wish you a nice weekend.